I said you
I'm
should
like,
start every video with that dance prep.
with the dance.
It was pretty entertaining.
Well, what can I say? I like to think I'm entertaining sometimes. Other times I like to think I'm embarrassing. So it just depends on. Hey guys, George Alexander here, and today we are back with another not Buffy reaction. I nearly said that, but it's not. Today is a Buffy season 2 review, and to start off these review, well, actually, I did one. I did a season 1 review, but that didn't count because you hadn't seen me react to said series. So to start off the reviews that you have seen me react to, I'm joined by one of my favorite people on the internet and just in the world and universe. It is Jamie from Cis Nerdly. Jamie, how the F are you?
I'm so happy to see you, and I'm so happy you're doing this Buffy journey. So excited for you.
I know, it's so exciting. For those of you who may not know, Jamie, if you don't know, then it'd be weird because she's a huge Buffy stan, but does Buffy reactions on your channel. How long have you been doing Buffy reactions now, then?
Oh, a couple of years. I think we started in 2021.
Damn.
I think.
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and look. It's been so long. It's a long journey. We know this.
That I'm like feeling already after just one. After doing one series, I'm like, great, we're done. And then I'm like, no, we're actually nowhere near done.
Right, like only over 100 episodes left, maybe.
Well, with Angel, it's like, I think it's 250 episodes or something in total. And I'm like, but no, I'm looking forward to it. But if you haven't, go and do check out Jamie's channel. Well, Jamie is a big Buffy fan, hence why she's here, but it's her sister who has been watching it for the first time.
That's right.
So I've only seen Buffy. How many times? Several?
I've probably watched it all the way through without skipping an episode like 3 times. But I always go back and rewatch episodes that I like several times. So like season 3, for example, I've watched several times.
Okay.
So yeah, it's like that. I do replay those good episodes, those iconic epic episodes.
Yeah, there's some already that I'm enjoying, but I'm looking forward to delving further into the show and kind of seeing
for sure
whatever, because like my friend Nick was like he loves season 3.
Yes,
I think he said between season 3
absolutely
was like one of his favorites. So he's like, I'm glad that you're finally going to get there now. So I'm thrilled, but we're not here to talk about season 3. We're here to talk about season 2 because that's what we've just watched. So let's just with this, there is no rhyme or reason. There never is with me and Jamie. It's just kind of top of the head thoughts, and that's
we're just going to talk about Buffy. And
well, we're going to talk about Spike. Is what we're going to talk about actually.
Oh, that's right. It's the Spike Hour.
It is. Welcome to the Spike Hour.
Yes.
Day, month, year, whatever. So I thought we'd start kind of just talking about like the overall themes of like series 2, because like for me, obviously series 1. I enjoyed series. I sorry if I say series in between series.
That's okay.
My Americanism sometimes I mix and match. But series
George,
1,
why aren't you more American?
I know. I'm so sorry. Oh my god. So I really enjoyed watching season 1. I can see there were elements of it that maybe were kind of just building blocks for the show, but like I quite enjoyed like the high school vibes or the 90s vibes, and I think that this series 2 did a good job on building on that, but also maybe adding more I don't want to say adult, but adult or young adult themes. So like stuff with like there was a lot of relationships that were kind of forming in this series, in season 2, that were kind of on the back burner in season 1, but we kind of got to see a lot more of the like the emotional toil of relationships in this season, and also like a lot of sex talk. A lot of
sexual themes all the way through this season.
It was quite, I mean, and obviously I think it works well because, you know, high school teenage kids are feral, hormones, they're kicking up. And I think what I enjoyed about having more episodes this series was because you got to spend more time with those characters and kind of understand them as people rather than just like, oh, they're in this show and now something's happening. Like I feel like there was plenty of scenes where we got to kind of have those conversations with like you know Cordelia with Willow and obviously Angel and Buffy's sort of own they're in their own world.
Yeah, that whole thing.
That whole shebang, which we will talk about. But also what I really enjoyed as well was like kind of seeing school life in like in the 90s, like sort of seeing those elements that are still, I think, in any school in any type of in any decade still show like, you know, being Miss Popular, dating the right people, like, you know, having the mean girls trope, which we had in, I can't remember the full name, Bewitched, the Valentine's episode.
Bewitched, Bewildered, and Betrothed.
So I mean, you Buffy fans like can like name an episode like when you say one thing. Like I said something to Nick, and he was like, "Oh yeah, school's hard," and I was like, "How?" I mentioned like one scene. So like,
that's an iconic episode. So yeah,
talk about that episode.
Yes.
But yeah, I really enjoyed sort of seeing those themes that are still very popular or known now, but see them sort of back then still be talked, like, you know, they were talked about then as well as they are now, if that makes sense. Like now obviously it's all a lot about phones and social media, but this kind of was before that. Obviously computers just coming into the world in this show, and so I really like that
the nostalgia factor in the show is wonderful, especially for people like me who grew up during that time. I see people all the time, like they'll see something, you know, a student walking through the halls and they'll be like, "We could never wear that to school." Girl, yes we did. we wore whatever we wanted. You know, it was a different time, and no phones. Like it's a great time to like just peek in on every once in a while.
Oh, definitely. And I think like because I have that nostalgia for that time as well, because of, I know I always talk about it, but because of Scream, like that type of era to me is just like with like the corded white phones. Like
Buffy was in a Scream.
She was in Scream too, and every time
she was murdered,
every time she picked up that phone in the show, I was like, I want to say the line from, she's like Omega Beta Zeta from Scream 2. Oh my god, listen, Scream Queens was iconic as well. That's another show that I'm obsessed with. But yeah, and I really also, another sort of ongoing theme that I enjoyed in this series and this season in particular as well was the relationship between Buffy and her mum. And I think like I love, what's her first name? I always call her Buffy's mum, but she has got a first name, Joyce. I love Joyce. I think because for a long time growing up, I was like child of like a single mother, and like so I kind of some of those conversations that they had. Obviously, it's not like two girls, so I'm not talking about like stuff like that. But you know, just the kind of the growing up conversations that I had. I'm like, oh my god, yeah, this reminds me of like when I was younger. And I'm thrilled that by the end of this season, you know, Joyce is now knows what's going on. Obviously, the ending of their kind of their relationship went through a lot of turmoil at the beginning. They're kind of quite close, and then there's a lot that happens in between. You have like the episode like Ted and things that kind of start to bring like rifts, and by the end of it, you know, there's definitely the relationship isn't maybe where it could be. And so that's something I'm looking forward to in the next series, is kind of seeing how that relationship develops. And because it was
like we see Joyce when you're young, when you're like a teenager watching this show. You probably think Joyce is kind of annoying, or you know, just getting in the way of what Buffy needs to do. But as an adult, when you're watching it, it's like, like I see exactly where Joyce is coming from. Of course she's terrified, but she doesn't even know that Buffy's a Slayer. She's just terrified because she's a teenager out there, you know, in the world. It's just like, it doesn't have anything to do with supernatural anything.
No.
But yeah, she makes the comment about reading the books.
Yes.
You know, and you know, the tapes don't say to do that.
And
she's trying really hard. She really does try, and she really cares about Buffy.
Like I really like the episode. Going to get the episode's name now. Hang on, I have got the episodes here. I would be helpful if I just pulled up the side episodes that I do have, because that would help.
Yeah, I did have them pulled up, but I was like, I don't really need that. So
so Killed by Death. Like I really liked Buffy's mum in that. Like I love the ending of that, when you know Buffy's like kind of getting better at home, and then Xander and Willow like start also ordering her around, and she's like, okay, like just like a proper
such a mom.
Yes, such a mom. It was so good. And so that was one of the key elements that I really enjoyed about this series in particular, was kind of seeing that develop more, and kind of seeing the turmoils of teenagers, you know, and parents, but with that added extra awkwardness of the fact that she can't tell
and
him.
now that Joyce knows, it's like,
yeah, like
there's a whole other level of, you thought she was bad before. No.
Yeah, like what happens next? So I am
Yeah.
really looking forward to that. And another that I thought was interesting as well was it was interesting, but then what happened like made me feel so uncomfortable. And it was like the Angel and Buffy's sex scene. Well, not the scene itself, but like, so Buffy losing her virginity. I don't know what words YouTube's gonna be like, what the fuck are you talking about? But
demonetized.
Yeah, so I obviously, the way that the follow-up episodes that happens and what happens in Innocence is the episode, I believe, right? That's the one where he becomes, I think it's Innocence. When he obviously becomes Angelus again, the way that he like speaks and the way that Sarah Michelle Gellar is just so good in her acting when they're talking about like what happened, and he's sort of like, you know, it was all right and that's why I had to get out of here, and she's like, did I do something wrong? I'm like, oh my god, this was like, I found it like, I mean, kudos to them, but like so uncomfortable.
Yes, it is one of the worst things to watch in that season. That moment is so awful.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's something that you can relate to, you know, you sleep with a guy and he turns into a monster.
Yeah.
You know, like you can become somebody else completely. It's like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just an awful thing to watch. And her acting in that is so good.
So,
and I think that you can tell how David Boreanaz enjoys being Angelus in that moment. Yeah, I think he really enjoys playing that.
Yeah, he definitely gets it. You can see, his acting is like top notch on that. So that's definitely another part that I was just like, oh my god, this was like a lot to take in. But is there anything like for you, obviously having viewed this series a couple of times, like that stands out in terms of like themes or any like overarching like stories that kind of stand out to you having seen it a few times?
Well, of course, the sexual theme is all the way through season 2, basically. I mean, we even get it in the werewolf episode. Like the werewolf is attracted to sex. Like it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we end on that, or in the middle, we get that 2-parter that's all about the Buffy and Angel, getting it on. The Buffy and Angel,
the hour.
I don't know. I never censor myself for YouTube. So I'll just be like, Buffy and Angel fucking, okay?
Yeah, there we go. It's fine. Don't worry. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But it all leads up to that, which I think is pretty neat.
Yeah.
Other themes. I mean, we talked about the parenting theme, what Joyce is going through here.
Mm-hmm.
Giles. Giles is becoming such a paternal figure to Buffy.
Yeah.
And there's just moments like when after Miss Calendar dies and he tries to go in and fight Angel or whatever, and Buffy has to run in and rescue him, and they're in that alley and she's crying like, I can't do this without you, kind of thing. That always makes me tear up, that little moment. Like I love their relationship. Other themes. Gosh, now I'm going through the whole show in my head.
You're like, which series are we on again?
Yeah, wait, which one is it?
The one where everybody dies by the end. Yeah.
Kendra.
Yes.
And Kendra shows up. And that's sort of, Kendra and Cordelia are sort of shadow selves of what Buffy could be. Like, if Buffy wasn't chosen, she would be a Cordelia type. And if Buffy didn't have friends and family, she would be a Kendra type.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting how she can see herself in all these different people. Even the Inca mummy girl.
Yeah.
Who was the chosen one as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that. I love how they touch on that throughout the series, different characters that you can relate to Buffy and what she's going through.
Yeah.
But sex was the big thing.
It was.
And of course, Spike, I mean, there's Spike right there. So
I mean, he's
a sexual theme with legs.
He really is. I mean, I do genuinely, as I say, from what I remembered of the show being on when I was younger, And when I mean it was on when I was younger, I mean the reruns, because although I've got a hairline of a 55-year-old, I am not 55. So, but I vividly remember that man being on my screen, and I do genuinely believe that's where I get my.
I mean, he would be unforgettable.
Yeah,
I believe that.
Yeah, so we will get to him. What I want to kind of touch on, because we kind of start speaking about it there, is sort of the relationships between the characters this series. Lots of relationships, being affected, changing, kind of coming into reason. Obviously, the big one, Buffy and Angel. I think coming into this series, obviously they were in a good place because Buffy had obviously kind of taken a while to get used to the idea that she was with a vampire, and the way that I think I said this in a couple of reactions, that Stephanie Meyer must have just said, I'm going to use Buffy and Angel
heavily
as
inspired.
Edward and Bella. Is I was like, this is insane. I mean, not that I hadn't seen there'd never been vampire love stories before, but just the way that Angel, especially in when he is Angel in the first half of the series, is still kind of elusive and sort of, in the shadows and all quite woeful me, you'll never love me, I can't be loved sort of aspect. I love how their relationship went from sort of that to kind of being quite hot and heavy during the middle part of the aspect, and then is just completely turned on its head from the mid-season onwards. Right. I think that, as I said, we kind of touched on that their acting together is fantastic, and I really loved in I Only Have Eyes for You. At the end when they kiss and she's like, yes, Angel, and he runs away, is just still so so good. But I wanted to ask you your thoughts. Do you think even when he is Angelos, I call it's Angelos, right? Oh, Angelus.
I've always said Angelus, which I also heard was wrong. So apparently I don't say it right. But that's how I say it. I think it's supposed to be Angelus.
Yeah.
Angelus. Yeah. Okay. I think this was. So you're closer than me.
Close. It's just it's because I'm British, guys. Okay, that's what it is. It's just my accent. But do you think that even him with the demon kind of being at the front and center in that aspect, he still did care for Buffy? Because obviously there's kind of that thing that he plays on the idea that they loved each other, but there were parts where I thought he's doing a lot for someone who just doesn't like this woman.
Right. Well, it's either that or he's just, I mean, we have to take consideration what he did to Drusilla too. He likes to do this stuff. Yeah. He likes to get you close and destroy you.
Yeah.
That's what he lives for. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if he cared as Angelus. I don't think he cared about Buffy. I think he cared about her on a level that was this is my next project. This is my next thing I'm going to do. It's going to bring me joy as a crazy murderer. As a psychotic, I would love this.
You would love this.
So I'm not sure if he had any affections for her because, the judge said there's no humanity in him. Which would make it impossible for him to actually have any concern for anyone.
For anyone else. Yeah, that's true.
Also, on the themes, we were talking about, the soul.
Yeah.
In Joss Whedon world is pretty interesting. It sort of acts like a moral compass, or if you have a soul, then you have a conscience. Yeah. And without a soul, you're basically a walking soulless being who doesn't care about anything at all. Purely selfish motives.
Yeah.
So that's, I guess, the difference between Angel and Angelus. But wow, what a difference that is.
Yeah, definitely. And I appreciated was that to really let us know that he was the villain, they said, we're going to give him so much under eye makeup that it's going to because maybe that mascara and the eyeliner was laid when he was the villain.
Oh my gosh. It's certainly been a few years since he put eyeliner on.
Yeah, he was I'm dark, let's get that. I mean, I understand that, when you're in the emo phase, you're
I'm a bad guy now, I must wear eyeliner.
I've got an eyeliner, yeah.
Get that tight line.
Oh, absolutely. So, but I will say as well, just just talking about, we'll touch on Angelus as a villain a bit later on, because I don't want to
Yeah.
like kind of derail what we're talking about. So other conversations you mentioned there, Buffy and Giles, like that was definitely something that this series that really like pumped up. Like there was even the from the conversation in no, I can't remember. It's not. I don't think it wasn't the same episode as Miss Calendar dying. It was. I don't think. No, it wasn't. When they're in the there's an episode God, where they're in the car together at the end, and they're talking, and I can't remember what episode it is now.
Yeah, that's the end of Innocence, I think, before she
Oh,
goes
it is.
in. Yeah, it's the end of Innocence. I love that conversation. I love it.
Yeah.
And it makes me tear up too.
Yeah, that conversation was fantastic. Also, the one where they're both, I think it's Lie to Me is the name of the episode, the one with the people who want to be, and at the end, they kind of have that conversation about, you know, being good and by the great in the graveyard.
You can always identify the villains by their dark mustaches and black hats.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like that was another fantastic.
And then she's like, liar.
Yeah. It's like there was just so many great little conversations, and also sort of seeing how he reacts to Jenny when Buffy kind of gets a bit like standoffish with her, which I don't know. I mean, I'm filming this way in advance, so I don't know what everyone's reactions. I said probably some rude things about Buffy during that, because I was such a Miss Calendar stan that when she was getting cocky, I was like, "Who do you think you're speaking to? Like, let's bring it down." Like, like you only known this guy like a season and a half. Let's calm down. So, like,
yeah, I did. I watched your reaction just earlier, so yeah.
So I don't know if that's like. Yeah, I was not having it. It was like, because I was like, calm it down. But I really enjoyed it. I think it kind of pulled home how much Giles really cares about Buffy, in the sense that, you know, the woman that he loved, like he was taking that step back from her because he wanted to protect Buffy in that sort of essence.
Yeah, so Buffy is clearly the most important thing in his life.
Yeah. And so I really enjoyed seeing sort of their relationship development. Like you say, yeah, the bit where she's like, I can't do this without you, and things like, oh my God, like it was so good. And I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing. I mean, look, I'm assuming that she's going to come back to Sunnydale. I would like to think she comes back to Sunnydale. I can't imagine that she's just going to go. Okay. I would be shocked if season 3 is like completely different characters. Maybe she just needs a little break. Sometimes you just need to get away for a few days, you know?
Right.
So
everybody needs a little time away.
Everybody needs time away. So hoping that she will come back, and then I'm again looking forward to seeing how their relationship develops. Also, there was a moment in Killed by Death between Joyce and I was like, baby, I was like, Jenny's not even in, not her grave isn't even like cold.
She's not cold in her grave yet.
And you already jump and like,
calm down, Milf.
Like, hi. And I mean, I get it. Joyce is like hot, but yeah. So again, I now that Joyce is obviously aware of who Buffy is, you know, it'll be interesting to see if we see a bit more of a dynamic between Giles and Joyce, because she'll have another adult to talk about sort of like what's going on.
You think they talk more, actually.
Yeah, because she's
you
like,
think they have more interactions.
Yeah. So but I'm looking forward to seeing if that is something that we also kind of get in the next series. But yeah, Buffy and Giles is definitely a big relationship in this series as well. And now we come to like I don't know, at first it was a love triangle. So let's start with Willow and Xander.
Yeah.
So I do like Xander. He's slightly grating on me ever so slightly at the moment, just because of the way there's certain parts of his character that I'm like, just like make a decision. Do you know what I mean? And so obviously the whole thing with like Willow, obviously at the very beginning of this series, and obviously in season 1 as well, being very much, you know, and enamored by Xander and everything he does, and kind of being that like sort of lost little puppy, like, oh, you know, following him around. I really love, obviously she then has Oz, which talking about, I mean, I just love Oz. I like Oz the character, but I also really like the land of Oz, which is another conversation to be had at another time. So every time they're like Oz, I'm like, oh my god, where's the wizard? So I enjoy the character of Oz, and I'm glad that he's come in, because I was like, I don't know how many seasons I can watch of Willow being like moping around after Xander. And I loved the episode. I can't remember the episode now, but where she finds out that Xander and Cordelia have been sort of making out, and she runs out into the corridor and she says to him, like, you know, the fact that you'd rather be with somebody that you hate than be with me. And I was like, like,
what's my no?
I think it is. Is it one of them? What's my line?
This is the one where he gets the rocket launcher.
Yeah. So what's my line? Part 2. Yeah, absolutely love that scene. I think that was definitely a turning point for her, when she kind of started to think maybe this isn't the best avenue to be going down, because to him I seem to be like irrelevant when it comes to a relationship rather than just like a best friend.
Right.
Then kind of looking at Xander or Cordelia, so like my 2 favorite characters are Spike and Cordelia. I love Cordelia. Like, I believe
so choices both.
Yeah, thank you. I love Cordelia, and so I've always kind of been mixed. Like, since she's been with Xander, I've kind of been mixed about the fact that he'd like, especially in the episode. Maybe it was the finale, when he's speaking to Willow and the thing, and he says, "I love you" to her on the bed. And I'm like, we're not doing this right now.
Yeah, let's not.
Because Miss Cordelia's over there, and we're not doing it. So that's something that's annoyed me at the moment with Xander, is kind of that relationship angle, and I kind of just want him. I'm like, you're with Cordelia, be with Cordelia. Like, I liked the idea of him and Willow being together, but now that they're both with different people, it's not vibing for me.
It's not working. Yeah.
No.
No. I mean, Willow could do better than Xander anyway. I mean, she's got Oz.
Yeah.
And to be fair, Cordy could do better than Xander.
I agree.
But yeah, there are a lot of people who have a lot of mixed feelings about Xander. But
yeah, and
I think that's valid. He's a complex character.
And I believe he only gets, as I say, no one's up spoiling anything, but I've heard that he, like, some in later seasons, he does, like, there's even more decision things that he does or says that people are a bit like, are questionable. So I'm intrigued, because when I said to my friend after series 1 that I liked Xander, he was like, okay. And so
interesting.
Interesting. So but they also said that about Miss, when I was telling everyone, I was like, oh my God, love Miss Calendar. And Nick was like, well, okay. So,
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, she's interesting. Apparently the actress is like turned like born again Christian, just doesn't speak about Buffy or something.
I heard that she went a little weird.
Maybe I'll send her my reactions and be like, look at the love that I have for you. Like,
look at us all crying over your death.
Oh my, that was a lot. But sorry, yeah. So Xander and Cordelia, I loved the episode Go Fish, where but the pool scene where she's like saying to him, like, I understand if you want to see other fish. And I'm like, how far she's come from like the beginning of the show. She's like, I don't even want to be like seen with you in public.
Cordelia arguably has one of the best like character arcs on this season.
Yeah.
Because she just, at first she's the mean girl, and then she just slowly sort of, every time we see the Scoobies together, she's there. And it's like, wait, why is she here?
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, okay. All right, she's getting in.
I think I said at the beginning of the season, I was like, I'd want to see Cordelia integrate herself more into the group. So like when she's doing, like in the later episodes, when she's like, I'm going to go off and do some research. I'm like, Cordelia, you go off and do that research. You're absolute icon.
Do that, girl.
Like, and the episode, I think it was Killed by Death as well, where Xander's like says to Giles, take Cordelia with you. And he's like, I don't want to take, and she's like standing there. She's like, that's a good idea. Yeah. Like, and she's always in trouble, bless her. For the most part, she's always and like becoming the damsel in distress. And something I would like to see later on in the series is kind of her, maybe, because for example, even the last 2 episodes when she like obviously runs away from what's going on, and Buffy's like, that's the right thing to do. But I would like to kind of see her maybe step up a bit more in that sense and kind of fight a little bit more. So that's something that I would, let's see. But their relationship, I think I do like them together. But what Xander is kind of, the way Xander works as a person is slightly annoying me because I'm like,
Yeah.
Cordelia's like literally like abandoned all her other friends. She's really like changed as a person, and you're kind of just doing the same
Harmony.
old. Yeah. And just touching on while I'm conversating about Xander, this like weird Xander and Buffy thing that happened. There was an episode or something where they were like had a moment, and I was like, we're not doing this. We're never doing this.
That was that after she stakes that vampire in the funeral home? Or
Yeah,
was it where they hugged and then they kind of backed away and like
there was
really close?
Yeah, and then there's like been a moment or two in this series where they've kind of had like an interaction like that, and I'm like,
well, the Bewitched
yeah,
one, she was under a spell, and he didn't take advantage of that, which was good.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think there was that little moment in the funeral home, and yeah, I hated that. I hated every second. Like, stop it!
It's not like it's just the most. It's like Danny and John. Like, no, I'm like, we don't need it. It's not working. Like, it's going to ruin the show.
Why did you add this extra layer of problems?
Yeah, we don't need it. There's already, he's got enough to deal with. Like, we don't need any more of this.
Right.
So yeah, but again, I'm intrigued to see how Cordelia and Xander's relationship develops, and also Oz and Willow's relationship as well. Then we come to our new arrival.
Can we quickly talk about the Oz and Willow conversation in the van?
Oh,
when
he said like that he wants, like in his dream, like she kisses because she wants to. I was like, he says the right stuff. It was and I don't know if it's in that episode as well or another one where they're like kind of sitting outside and she asks. I can't remember if she asks him something, but I was like young Seth Green, like the way like he's got like a little bit of like pardon the pun, but spunk to him, and I'm like, if he spoke to me like this, I would like collapse on the courtyard.
If anyone said those things to me, I would
like
collapse.
He's so good, and
then Willow's like after he said all that, Willow's little look, she was like,
kind of goes like, oh, she's like,
oh, okay.
Wait. There is a guy that actually cares about my feelings. I'm not used to this.
Yes.
Literally me.
I love that moment. That's what my favorite is between them.
It's really good. And I'm looking forward to seeing sort of that. And I love, for example, like I'm so glad that when Xander said I love you, she said Oz. And I was like,
yes.
I was like, thank God, because I was like, you get those. I was like, if it had been Oz and then she'd gone Xander, I would have been like, kill me now.
Oh God.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing their relationship develop, and also, for Oz as well. I'm like, are we gonna? I'm sure we will, but I'm like, will we ever see him as a werewolf again, or is that just like like a MacGuffin where it's just like the episode? Is it gonna be like when it's a full moon? It's like, where's Oz? He's off in his cage. Because I would like, and I think it'd be because look, I mean, so Oz is obviously a werewolf. And Willow's, she's starting to, and by the end of the episode, she's starting to delve into a little bit of this black magic, this witchcraft. And so I would love like a supernatural power couple to like pop up and like her to like
a werewolf.
Yeah, literally like her open a book and then he like goes run, like turns, he starts running, she's like incantating people. Like that would be iconic. So I would like to see something like that happen. And again, I'd like to explore, and something I'd like to explore further in the show. Sorry, just while it's on my mind, is more supernatural characters on the good side. Like obviously we've got like the vampires things, but having maybe some more supernatural characters that, because obviously we have Amy the witch as well. She's kind of floating about, and I really enjoyed. It took me a second to realize it was her, but I really enjoyed having her back. And I'm a big fan of like witchcraft and stuff, even though I've never seen Charmed. But so
thankfully we know that there are all sorts of different types. Yeah. In Sunnydale, so
exactly. There's who knows who knows
what you have in store
pop up next. But speaking of things popping up, let's talk about Spike, because so I think several things popped up when he came onto the screen. But
your reaction to Spike when he showed up in School Hard, and you were just like, I was like, yes,
because I was worried that that was the one thing I knew about, and the one thing that I was sort of excited to see. Because again, I don't ever remember watching Buffy and seeing a scene and like knowing like a scene with him. Like I just remember the idea of him. So it's obviously stuck with me for years. And I was like, watch him be in like season 6 and 7, and that's it. And I'm like going to be like waiting for. So I was so thrilled when he showed up in that episode. I think him and Drew a real breath of fresh air for the series in terms of the overarching villains. Obviously, Angela Sen takes to another level, but sort of the fun, those two together, I adored.
Yes.
In the first half of the season, I think that they were, the right amount of like camp madness and also like being like terrified of them, because they're obviously, especially Drusilla having that before she was obviously restored to her power, she was even more unhinged, in a sense. And so I really liked
and
the way
full strength and more unhinged.
Oh yeah, like just like gets even crazier as it goes on. And just they really solidified. I love like sort of just their sort of like chemistry together, just this sort of constant like like being like two teenagers sort of like like living that like life, being so into each other.
They have that passionate, like lustful love for each other.
Yeah, and
it's intoxicating to watch.
It really is like so cool. And I loved like their first episode being that Skullsard and kind of them ending the Anointed One like real quick. And
the annoying one is
the annoying. I mean, that was iconic when he said that. And so I really loved their relationship. Then when Angelus turned up, like the way that I went like a 3. I mean, again, it's probably a bit what's name for me because I do have this like obsession with Spike. So like when the way that Drusilla, like, and I understand that she's got this past with Angelus, and obviously he's the reason she is the way she is in a sense. So I can see that obsession. But I think what was really interesting was how you can see the difference between her relationship with Angelus and her relationship with Spike. Like with Spike, she seems to, there's a bit more of like an equality there, whereas with Angela, she's kind of just enamored by him.
She calls him daddy at one point.
Yeah.
And like that is a different kind of dynamic the two of them have.
Yeah.
But I love that Angelus sort of dangles that over Spike. Like the mental tricks that he plays with people is just on a level.
Top notch. And there's that, I can't remember which episode, but when he says about that Spike needs that extra hand, and so he'll do things for him that if he's not already doing them, and I was like, I just like throw hands. I was like, literally, you leave this man alone. He's been through enough.
Spike in his cuck chair.
Yeah, literally, like but yeah, it's that up to those like first episode, like 10 and 11. So, and I loved how at the end of the episode 11, I think it was episode 11, the end of like What's My Line Part 2, when we saw Drusilla like back to full health and she like carried Spike like out. Like I love that there is that's what I mean by like the equality of, or like I can't imagine her like Angel probably wouldn't, or Angelus probably wouldn't want to be carried out by her because he'd be like, I made you and whatnot. And I did really like in the last episode us seeing their first meet as well, in like London when he was obviously killing the priest, and they had that first interaction. And I would really like
I love a flashback.
Yeah, I do. I love a flashback, and I would really like to see more flashbacks of sort of that time and kind of see exactly. And if it's a way, I mean, not that Angelus can never come back, because obviously they can take his soul again, but just another way to kind of bring the darker version of him back, but also kind of understanding why Drusilla is the way she is.
Right.
Because I think that
I'm glad they added that in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a question for a while. Like, why is she this crazy?
Yeah.
But Angel does tell Buffy, kind of what he did to Drew. In a conversation that they had in one of the episodes, and it sounds pretty brutal. Even Angel's like the delicate way of telling it.
I've explained.
But it's on a different level in reality. Like what he did to her is insane. And then he goes on to basically try to do the same thing to Buffy. He tells Buffy, I killed everybody she loved, and then I made her insane. And so that's what he's setting Buffy up. Angelus is setting Buffy up for that.
for that.
It's his up to his old tricks.
But he doesn't make it, or he hasn't. I mean, we don't know. Again, there's a lot more to come, so it could creep back up. He's been chucked into a hell dimension somewhere. Where and when he pops up again.
Those things don't have permanent locks on them, so we'll see what happens.
He'll end up in somewhere, I'm sure, and we'll be shocked and surprised to see him at the same time. One final relationship I want to touch on, of course, is Giles and Jenny, because
poor Giles.
Giles has gone. I feel like I know Buffy's gone through it this season. I think a lot of the characters have, but Giles has gone through it. From the whole the situation with Jenny, with Ethan, kind of coming to terms and trying to explain who he is and what he used to do and how he was. The one thing I will say is Jenny needed to after everything that when we found out what happened with Jenny and her family, I'm like, did you need to act this way when everything that sort of you've got in your back pocket going I can't speak to you. But yeah, I feel like their relationship was such a roller coaster, and I'm glad. I don't know if I am glad though that by the end of it they were in a place where they were both sort of feeling each other again, not like that, but feeling each other, and but for that moment,
almost like that.
Well, it would have been if Angel
if they were this close,
snapped their neck.
Right? Oh my god, so dramatic.
So yeah,
he didn't even feed on her.
No, I know he just.
I mean, that's that. It's not. I'm not going to eat her. I'm just doing this for you.
Yeah, it was. The drama. So I really loved the evolution of their relationship, the ups and downs of it. I felt like a real relationship, the other people getting in the way. So again, sort of touching on Buffy and Giles and how he kind of reacts to in Buffy's favor rather than Jenny's favor, but how towards the end he does come round, and then even Buffy goes to Jenny and says, look, I know that he misses you.
Yeah, I love that. I love that little moment.
Yeah,
she did not have to do that, but I'm glad she did.
Yeah, well, I loved that before that she was like, "Are you suffering?" She was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Good, keep suffering." And I was like, "That's when I was like, we need to take this down a notch, man." So I really, I loved their relationship, and it was just either even more heartbreaking that they
a lot of heartbreak this season. A lot of heartbreak
that they reconciled towards the end, and even. I love that it carried on. I'm glad that it wasn't like, oh, she's dead now, let's move on. Because I really loved in the I Only Have Eyes for You when he was he thought the ghost was Jenny, and he was like, it's obviously Jenny, and he was trying to get back and try and get her back. And then even in the final episodes as well, when they were kind of saying, okay, maybe we can now we found the floppy disk, that was stressing me out. I was like, can someone there's nobody hoovering this space? Why is nobody found this disk?
Where's the janitor? Clean this place.
Yeah, well, he just shot somebody. That's where it is. But he,
That's right.
And I loved the when Xander said to Buffy, about the Miss Calendar. He was like, "This was Miss Calendar's last request. It's what she'd have wanted." And then he's like, "Oh yeah, well now she's dead and all this." And then Giles kind of got "Don't you dare speak about her like that." And I was like, it was a dramatic.
Very intense moment in the library.
Yeah, absolutely. I really wish there was another librarian that was just shh, just sort of this is a library.
The ghost from Ghostbusters comes out.
Yeah. I think that would have been iconic. So yeah, this series has definitely been a lot of relationships, and I'm looking forward to kind of seeing how they progress in the next season. And also kind of just finish off their way. I was talking about Spike and Drusilla that I forgot to mention. Obviously at the end, they both drive off into the sunset together, as it were. And I'm looking forward to seeing how she reacts with Spike now, after obviously she knows that he betrayed her and Angel. And will he be able to kind of keep her on side, or will that kind of unravel? I guess we'll find out. But
yes.
I want to talk then just quickly about the villains of this season, sort of the favorite and least favorite villains. So obviously, even though he's not a villain to me, Spike is obviously just.
I mean, Spike and Drusilla,
yeah,
and Angelus are the top three.
Yeah,
of the season. I mean, together they're unstoppable, amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, unstoppable, I guess, but
almost. Yeah. That's different
kind
stuff.
of,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
those are the main three.
Yeah.
That they're just brilliant, all three of them.
And
Usually, you would just need one main, but in this case, we have a buffet of
a Buffy
a
buffet,
buffet.
as it were. And they all bring like different aspects. Like, although they're all vampires, they all have their own personalities and like different
Yes.
aspects that kind of add
I
some
really
nice.
love that about this show, and especially season 2.
Mhm.
They really start diving into all these characters, which is why you care about all of them so much, because you see all these different layers and different characteristics, and that's why this show makes you really love the characters. So aside from whatever's going on, even with episodes like Bad Eggs, or Ted, or Go Fish, there's still depth going on in the characters. There's still development happening, even if it's in little increments.
Definitely. Yeah. And I say, so Spike's definitely my favorite, and Drusilla really like, but she started annoying me towards the end. And I will have to say Angel is probably one of my favorite as well. Sorry, Angelus, in the sense that I hated him. In the words of Mrs. White in Clue, I hated him so much. Flames on the side of my face, heaving breaths. Like, it was obviously hats off to David, because I was like, he annoyed, like, the visceral reactions to it, especially towards the end of the season. I was like, can you just go, because you're like, it's affecting me mentally and emotionally, and that is the sign of a good villain.
Yes.
And so and
to take a character that we love, like, on a personal level, and just flip him to the point at the end where you're just like, I'm glad he's gone.
Like, to the point of, like, I was like, I don't know how, if they bring Angel back, how I'm supposed to look at him the same after what he's done. Like,
right. I mean, after he killed Miss Calendar, that's like, how do you come back from that? Even if he does get a soul or whatever, how are you gonna make that up to these people? Like, how are you? There's no coming back from that.
No, definitely not. So we'll see how when he pops up again, what he's like, and how he begins to kind of how we see him next time. Another one of my favorites, who I also put on my list here, was, I really liked Ethan Rain. I thought he was a really interesting character. I loved that episode, Halloween. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought he was definitely a grey character, because he seemed to be doing, there was obviously darkness within him, but he also had that like cheekiness and sort of like,
I really like him. Plus, he brings in that story of Giles' past. Every time he shows up, we get a little snippet of Giles' past, a little bit. So and
I really like that about him, and I kind of, it made me feel like it was sort of like a sort of like we'd said about, Buffy looking at Cordelia and Kendra. It was very much like, Giles looking at what he could have been had he maybe continued down this road that Ethan's on. And so that was like, I was like, what is he, Jack the Ripper? I was like, so confused.
I loved your reaction to that. You're like, what?
It's like, where the fuck is I really like him, and I would really like to see him again. I think because he's a grey character, he can kind of play on both sides of the ball of the park, whatever. I don't know what analogy I'm trying to use there, but he can go from side to side, similar to what I think could happen with Spike. As I say, we've already kind of delved into the idea that he's, he obviously has something against Angel, Angelus, and kind of helped Buffy. So again, I think there's that kind of, what's good about these sort of getting a couple of anti-heroes in there would be quite an interesting mix for the team and moving forward. So Ethan was another one of my favorites. A couple of my least favorites real quickly. Well, just not that, nothing against them, but just I was like, I mean, the reptile demon and that snake thing that
the phallic shaped thing at the end.
And what it was, why it was there, what was needed, the fact that it was killed in its second. Like, I know, I thought it was a joke. I thought like he wasn't even threatening,
honestly.
I was like,
I think that episode is more about like, don't drink at parties, kids.
Oh yeah, it's definitely, again, talk about like themes. It's definitely about, be careful of teenage boys. Yes. Another one that I didn't particularly grab, Daryl in the second one. I was like,
some assembly required.
Yeah, he was just like so stupid at the end. He was like, "I'm going to, like, I can't leave," and I was like, "What are you doing, you absolute fool?"
That speech that he gives to his little brother,
Oh,
I can't watch that. I
no.
cringe so hard. I'm just like, oh, who is this character and why?
Yeah, like it was.
Yeah.
It was not a vibe. So they're probably my sort of like two that stuck out that I was like a little bit annoyed. I don't suppose she's a, well, I suppose she was a villain. Like the mummy, the Inca mummy girl, like she was fine. Like I kind of
I mean, I
liked
see
it.
what they were trying to do with her, but
Yeah, she
she's
was
was,
no
you know,
Anaximand Moon. Do you know what I mean? Like she wasn't
right.
given, it wasn't Rachel Weisz in the Mummy sort of vibe. So
Right.
she was fine, but yeah, she didn't kind of. I wasn't like, oh my god, this is one for the books, as it were.
Right.
I think, and there were a couple of others along the way, but those obviously the ones that stuck out in terms of best were definitely obviously Spike, Angelus, and Drew, and then sort of Ethan as well, and then Daryl and the reptile. It's when I'm just thinking like, what was that about? Those two were definitely. Are there any particular ones
Those
for
episodes
you?
were definitely like candy episodes. Like,
Yeah,
just a little adventure.
yeah, just to kind of
The end.
spread out. Yeah, the
Something
way
to
like
free Cordelia out.
they're
We'll
like,
put
okay,
Cordelia in danger.
yeah,
And
and
we'll
then
move on.
let's move on. Do
Yeah.
you have any particular least favorite or favorite other ones that we haven't mentioned there in terms of like villains or?
Well, I don't know if I call him a favorite or a least favorite, but Ford shows up
Yeah,
and he presents that sort of question, if you're dying, if you're on your deathbed and
yeah,
you don't have any choice and you could become a vampire, what links would you go to
yeah,
do that? And I love the episode is great because it's the Lie to Me episode. But the conversation that Buffy has with Ford talking about, you have a choice. You don't have a good choice, but you have a choice, and that's
yeah,
what she says. And that line is kind of like that's something that Buffy will have to face over and over and over again. You have a
yeah.
choice. You don't have a good choice, but you have a choice.
You have a
And so she's
choice.
sort of mirroring this back to him. So as a villain, I don't know if I consider him a villain, but I just thought he was an important one to show up and sort of present that kind of question.
No, I agree, because at the beginning I was sort of like, oh god, like what is this like? I mean, I get, to be fair, I was like, yeah, I probably would be in that club. I'd be like, especially after Twilight, I'm like, make me a vampire. But obviously,
with Spike around, come on,
Jesus, like there would
stop you from becoming a vampire.
It would. I mean, people would. I think like another vampire would put a spike through my heart because they'd be like, I can't with this. Like this can't go on. But yeah, I really enjoyed kind of that sort of twist and understanding why somebody would want to do that, for maybe not even like, I suppose it is a selfish reason in a way, but for a selfish reason that some people could go, I can understand why, rather than just like, I want to like live forever. And like, it's kind of, there was an extra layer there. So that I definitely it did enjoy. So something, I just want to quickly, I'll just vaguely as well run out through while we're talking about faves and least faves. Some of my favorite episodes, like just off the bat. So obviously School Hard. No surprise.
I mean, iconic.
Like, I'm not even just Spike being in it, but just like the story itself, I thought was really
cool. It's
a
good episode.
It's just like a really fun.
It's a really good episode. It's got a lot of funny moments in it too. Like Willow telling Cordelia get some lemonade always cracks me.
Oh yeah. And
so funny.
And when they're like sat in the thing and she's praying and she's like, and Willow's sat there like,
can you send some aspirin?
Yeah. Like just so good. So that's
a lot of good ones.
Favorite. The What's My Line two-parter, love. So I just want to touch on Kendra.
Yes.
Obsessed with Kendra. Absolutely obsessed. Well, minus the accent, obsessed with Kendra because that accent.
Yeah, a lot of people were a little iffy about that accent, but I think it was a decision that was made at the last minute.
Yeah.
Was to give her this Jamaican accent.
Yeah.
I think she had like maybe a couple days of training. So yeah, but that actress, Bianca Lawson.
Yeah.
Bianca Lawson.
She looks exactly the same now.
I know.
I saw a photo and it's like,
I know.
Maybe she's a vampire.
Like, yeah, well, Cordelia too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, stunning. Christina Carpenter. Like, just. Sorry, I called her Christina Carpenter. I was thinking of Scream. Yeah, Charisma Carpenter. I'm sorry. Yeah. Sorry, everyone. Don't hate me.
Right, don't mess up that name. That name's iconic.
So yeah, like just so that too was great. That twist with Kendra. I was like, how is she? And then when it was like, it's when a Slayer dies, and I was like, oh my god, yeah, of course she died.
I love that. I love that they did that.
such a good
But it
twist,
makes
and
sense. Yeah.
it does. And I was so sad. I mean, I was like, truly didn't believe that she died at the end. I was like, it's like, she's not dead. She just had a like scratch. I'm like, and so I'm kind of annoyed and sad
Okay,
that she went out
Belinda.
that way. Literally, I'm like, she's
I'm
fine.
like, she had to have CPR at the end.
Yeah.
Like, well,
I'm like, what? So I'm kind of sad that, or not sad, but kind of a bit disappointed in one sense that that's how she went out. I'm like, she was like a real badass, and it was like, I understand that she was kind of under Drusilla's spell, but I'm like, really,
right.
like, I would have liked a bit more personally. But I'm obviously intrigued now because I mentioned it in my reaction as well, because now that she's dead, it's very plausible that we'll see another Slayer because we've just had this Slayer die, and so I'm intrigued to see, even when we get that, who that is and sort
Right.
of
It's like
how
the
they
Slayer line is
differ.
kind of broken now, so
Yeah,
we don't know what's gonna
we can
happen.
all wait. They can, if I assume that Buffy's going to be in all of it, but there's always that chance now that there can always be an extra Slayer popping up here and there because we'll just kill that Slayer and bring in somebody else. So.
Right.
I'm intrigued to see what happens. So yeah, loved the What's My Line. Innocence, another fantastic episode. I loved like all of the and the same with Passion as well. Innocence and Passion, two of my favorite ones. Innocence just like so good with what obviously happened,
Right.
like with Anderson, like that twist was just like crazy. And then Passion, I loved something that was really cool in the last few episodes and was kind of like was the Angelus like voiceover that was kind of like becoming a thing, like where he was sort of, and that Passion sort of like monologue he gives it like at the beginning is so good. And although it like the episode destroyed me emotionally, it was such a fantastic
It was just really
episode.
well done. It was just a really well done episode. And if that your first watch on this, you really don't expect somebody that's that prominent in the story to die.
No.
Like that. It is a shock when that happens.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad that they did that, because now in the back of your mind for the whole rest of the show, you're going to be like, maybe I better not get too attached to certain people. And
Yeah.
I think that's just an awesome like thing to have when you're a fan of something. It's like, it's great.
Yeah.
Oh, please don't kill anyone.
Yeah, I was even like that in, because just touching on my other last favorite episode, sort of the two parts at the end, the finale, Becoming, was that scene when obviously the vampires jump into the library. How I was like, they kept like showing Cordelia, and I was like, if they kill Cordelia, I'm gonna lose my shiz. And so I was like, just like you say, sort of that idea that I was like, what? I was like, someone in this room could die, like Giles, like Willow, like Xander. One of these could die, and so yeah, and all because kind of like you say, especially from the Miss Calendar situation, it's like, oh damn, who is really safe in this show, and that's always a good way to be because you're constantly
right
on edge about it.
You keep your audience on the edge of their seats for sure.
You've got to, especially when there's a lot of episodes, a lot of seasons.
I mean, season 2 is on just a whole different level than season 1. I've even heard people say that you don't have to watch season 1. I would argue with that. I'd say there's about 3 or 4 episodes in season 1 that you absolutely have to watch. But yeah, season 2 is a whole other level. This is a full budget. This is, they're 100% in it.
Yeah,
in the second season, it just builds. It's great.
Definitely. I also loved just in Becoming, just thinking about shouts, the little Darla cameo in the first one, because I was like, is this Darla? I was like, it looks like her, but I can't tell. And then I like looked after the show and I was like, oh god, it is her. Like, I really like that they brought that back, because I forgot that obviously she'd mentioned in the episode in season 1 that she was Angel's like sort of reason for being here. So that was great.
Yeah.
And then a couple of my least favorite episodes, you mentioned one, Bad Eggs was fine, but I was like, it was a struggle to edit, and I was like, this is I don't know what's going on. It was given very much the Faculty movie.
Yeah.
Like it was, it was fine, but it wasn't my favorite.
The Vampire Brothers, though. When I watched it with Belinda, she was like, oh my god, we're represented in this episode. I was like, yes, finally, we feel seen, we feel heard. Yes.
Yeah, but another thing that's like good about the show as well, similar to that, like I was thinking, okay, these two are like the new baddies that are coming up, And it turned out they weren't, and very similar to the judge as well. I was like, "Oh, here's the judge," and then they were like,
Oh, he's
"No,
the rest of the season. Nope.
he's gone." Like, no,
Yeah.
Angelus is the big baddie here.
Yeah.
So also Reptile Boy, that episode was not for me. I was just like, I understood, like, it had some good elements, like, again, like sort of the fraternity house sort of aspect, and that, like, I understood that, and I thought it was important, but it didn't need to be a whole episode. I feel like with that villain, which was like not worth it. And
some
then
of them just don't push the story. Some of them are just sort of, moments in time. But that's fine too. I'm happy with that too. Some of them are great.
Some of those as well, those like in time episodes help just because they kind of, although the villain may not be the key point, there's usually some good scenes with our main group of characters that kind of then build on, so that when you get to like a big episode, you're like, oh yeah, this was sort of mentioned in that episode. So
I mean, even the worst episodes of Buffy are better than a lot of TV I've seen. So
oh yeah, easily. I can definitely see that. And then another one, I wasn't a big fan of that Inca mummy girl. I like, it was fine. I think the beginning of the series started off a little slow, and I think though, like from the mid-season onwards, it just kind of really revved up and picked up a bit more.
Right. When they do that mid-season two-parter, it's just it changes. The whole story is more intense after that.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, there's a handful of episodes I could do without. Go Fish for me is not a great one. It's funny. Whatever. Creature from the Black Lagoon, I get it.
Yeah, the ending was like when they were like, she was like, I don't think they're coming back, and then just like these men in suits, and I was just like, what is
swimming off in the ocean?
Okay, sure.
I was like, okay, well,
yeah,
there's that episode in the books.
Yeah. So were they, for you, would you say, like, are there any ones is like same for you, like favorite or least favorite episodes that stand out for you in season 2?
Yeah, I mean, I've been known to watch Becoming the part 2. Becoming part 2 is like a repeat for me.
Right.
Passion, of course.
Yeah.
A School Hard, just like the really iconic episodes. I know I've seen them more than, I've probably watched them several times.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some great ones. It's hard to pick which episodes are bad or good, because they're all good on a level,
Yeah. It's sort of, it is. That's fair. Okay, well, Tanner, to round off then, you could try and chime in, but it'll be difficult because you've seen the entire show. So me saying, what do you want to see more of? But maybe you can talk about like when you look at that series, was there anything in particular that you would have, obviously no spoilers, would have liked to have seen more of, whether that happens or doesn't? So I can kind of, for me, obviously, I need more Spike. Like immediately, I need him to be on.
I think that's a universal. Like anyone would want that. We want to know what happened to Spike and Drusilla.
Yeah. Like we need to see that. Right. I want to see more. I mentioned it earlier, like Cordelia helping. Like, I loved that in this series, like her becoming more involved.
More Cordelia
with the group.
For sure.
Yeah.
More Oz.
Yeah, more Oz. And I'd kind of mentioned as well on here, I'd put also like some new people in the gang. Like, I feel like,
a little mix up.
Yeah, I feel like, we've got a great group of artists, and I think they're all fantastic and great. But I think sometimes, even if they're not in every episode, or like they're only in half a series, I think just kind of adding an extra dynamic in here and there to kind of even let us see new sides to those characters that we've already got, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, for sure.
So they would,
but, I don't want to give too much away, but I'll just say yes, correct on all of those fronts.
Thank you so much. And then I've only got one less of like that I could think of realistically. I mean, I would ideally like less. Like, I mean, I'm not going to get them because every season's 22 episodes, but some episodes I'm like, I tell you what I would like less of. I'd like less of, in some of these singular, not so important episodes, I'd like the villain to have a little bit more, like, I'd like the fight to be a little bit more, because I feel like on some of these, like Reptile Boy or whatever, it's
they're
like
killed like that,
and I'm like, and that's the
not
end.
Even a threat, right?
Yeah, and like even Go Fish, where it's like they won't be coming back. And I'm like, how do you know they won't be coming back? Like, do you know what I mean? I'm like, she just assumes they won't be coming back because they've gone off. Yeah. I mean, those waves were pulling them back pretty fast, so I mean, they could be back in those sewers anytime soon.
Right.
So that's something that I would ideally like to see, like just some of those singular episode villains have a bit more about them to make us feel like, oh, like of course you're going to want to ramp up your main villains, of your overarching villains, of your big baddies, as it were. But I do think that sorry, I use my hand a lot. I don't know what it is. I'm like Adele
I
when
do
she
too.
sings anymore. So like I'd like to see a bit more of that. And then also I want to see less of that. And I also want to see less of I've just put Xander's love shapes because at this point it's not a triangle.
Honestly.
I don't know what it is. It's a square or a pentagon. Like
Right.
it's whatever it is, I need it to stop. I need him to kind of make a decision on what he wants.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I understand that. Yeah.
Go from there.
We're over Xander's love troubles at this point.
Absolutely.
Please pull it together.
Yeah. Like it's too much. So that's kind of my overall feelings and thoughts on series 2. I'm looking forward to delving into season 3 today because I feel like a lot of people have said that season 3 moving onwards is like season 2 is where it starts to really get into what Buffy is, and then season 3 onwards is like and I think my friend Nick said he loves season 3 and he said season 5 is the best television that's ever been on TV apparently.
I 100% agree with him. Season 3 is my favorite season.
Yeah.
And season 5 is just amazing. Season 3 is my favorite because I just enjoy it. I enjoy the process of watching season 3.
Yeah.
And season 5 is on a level.
Okay. Interesting. So then to round off then, what would you say for me and for anyone else who's like watching Buffy or Devil, what advice or how would you expect them to like going forward in the show? What advice would you give somebody who's watching Buffy like to feel or to look out for, as it were, do you think?
To look out for? I'm not a spoiler queen, so I would never tell. What I'll say is what I say to Belinda.
Mm-hmm.
Watch and find out.
Okay. Then thanks for that. That was great. What a way to end. That definitely. I'm really looking forward to kind of getting back into season 3 and kind of seeing where things are now. And how the show moving forward, because it does seem that moving forward it only does get better, although I've heard mixed reviews about the end of season 7. But listen, I've watched Game of Thrones. I'm prepared for TV to end.
You've already been through the worst of it.
Listen,
it can't be much worse than that. Right?
That's what I've said. I was like, it can't be worse than Game of Thrones, right? And unless if they kill Spike in that last episode, then we'll have an issue. But before then, look, we're fine. We're enjoying it. We're just living in the moment right now.
That's right.
And that's all we can do. So I just want to say again, thank you so much, Jamie, for joining me and on our rambles.
It was a pleasure. I will talk about Buffy anytime.
Good. We'll absolutely need you back on the channel another time. And for those who might not know who you are or where you are, where can the folks find you?
You can find me at Sis Nerdly on YouTube. Check out Twitter or X. I got all my links on my page. So go over there, subscribe. Say hello.
Say hello, and a patron as well. If you're looking for early access and
full reactions, early access.
There you
go. You're 10 episodes ahead on Patreon.
Damn
I think on YouTube, what did I just upload? I just uploaded the first episode of Angel on YouTube.
Damn. So, well, this will be coming out in 12 weeks. So by then,
by then, hopefully, I'll have at least 2.
There we go. Listen, guys, you get what you get. At the end of the day, you enjoy the content. The dolls are the dolls. Hi, gay. I forgot we should have done did you watch the most recent episode of The Bold and the Beautiful?
Yes.
With where she kept going about.
I always watch them. Yeah.
Chapter 44.
Yeah.
And I was like,
she kept saying that through the whole thing.
And it took
44.
20 minutes, and then Trixie was like, "What is chapter 44?" And she was like, "Alyssa Edwards," and she was like, "Oh yeah, of course."
Oh yeah,
so
Queen,
good,
yeah.
Absolutely iconic. So anyway, sorry guys, that was just a little. Anyway, as always, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. All my social media is in the description box below. And until next time, see ya.